Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Kristen. I go by Knit and Craft on the internet, and I come to you from a very dreary Baltimore County, Maryland, where I live with my partner, Mr. Craft, and our dog, Nala. So our dog is a golden retriever. You may be able to see her in the background. If not, you're definitely going to be able to hear her licking her paws because that's what she's currently doing. And well, it's been a while since I've been able to film. I just really haven't had like the mental space to do a full podcast episode, but I have been keeping up pretty well on my project vlogs. So maybe you've seen some of those. Everything I have to show you here today, all my finished objects, have been released as project vlogs already, except for one thing. So it shouldn't be too much of a surprise if you keep up with these things. Anyway, more about me. I am primarily a knitter, but I also do a little bit of other crafty things such as spinning and weaving and crochet. But I generally transition in the spring and summer months to a lot of gardening content. So if that interests you, I will definitely be putting in small clips of my garden towards I will definitely put in small clips of my garden and different updates for my garden at the end of these podcast videos during these gardening outside months. Okay. So hopefully this is usable. I am using a lot of artificial light directed at me. Obviously, like I said, it's kind of a low energy time. And I guess we'll get into that before we start anything else. I've had like a lot of medical stuff going on, nothing bad, just like checkups and blood draws and vaccinations and all those things. And I didn't realize how much that like affected my mood, but like I have been kind of just like out of it and a little spacey too. So I have a Dr. Pepper. I hope you have a great beverage as well. I know that these aren't the best for you, but all of my blood work came back absolutely perfect, so I'm rewarding myself. I have quite a few finished objects, so I am going to just dive right in. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this because I have dedicated project vlogs to each and every one of these, except for the last thing, which I will have a project vlog come out within the next week or so. So without further ado, let's do the first finished object. This is the Midland cardigan. This is a pattern by Laura Penrose. This is my second time knitting this pattern in this exact yarn, but it's my first successful attempt. I knit the size 4 on recommended needles, which were 4.5 millimeter knitting needles. I knit this with, oh, it's gonna escape me now. I knit this out of West Yorkshire Spinners BFL Fleece DK in the color Ravine, which I think is 1041, but don't quote me on that. This went through a saga. I really thought that this would not fit me well. The construction is very interesting. You start, it's not seamed, like it's not all together, right? So you start by casting on stitches for, let's see if I can show this adequately. You cast on the stitches at the shoulders or at the side seam where it's up and around, and then you mark where you're going to connect your arm together to make your armhole. And then you knit front and back panels. You do some front shaping, then you cast off, you work just across the back panel, you cast on, work the other front panel. It's a very interesting construction, and like I said, I do have a project blog on this, so if you're interested in seeing like how I constructed this, you're more than welcome to watch this. I will link it somewhere, either in the description or put a card somewhere. Overall, I am insanely happy with this. I find myself drawn to V-neck cardigans. I have the Calm Down Cardigan by Lily Kate France. I have this by Laura Penrose. I love them both. So I'm very happy to have this in my wardrobe. I would 150% knit this again. I would choose different yarn because as you can, I've worn this to bits at this point. I've probably worn this 7 or 8 times since I finished it. And I do think it could use a wash, but I'm hesitant to wash this particular garment a ton because of the yarn that I used. It is a BFL. It has a halo to it. And I'm afraid that if I wash it too much, I'm going to lose the stitch definition in the garter that makes it so pretty. But that's not the pattern. That was my yarn choice. And while I do love this yarn, I love everything about it. I love this color. I'm very excited to have this. I wouldn't knit this particular garment out of the fleece again. I will pick a sturdier wool that has a better stitch definition and not so much halo. But overall, extremely happy with this. I would knit this pattern again, and I probably will knit this pattern again because this in like a charcoal gray would be stunning. All right, first finished object, Midland Cardigan. Now, let's talk about my newspaper socks. I know it's been a really long time since I filmed, but the last time you saw these socks, I was on the first sock, and it was a completely different color story. I actually don't know where the pieces are, but I made a huge mistake in the leg of that sock where I really needed to go back and fix it. And I didn't feel like ripping the whole sock out because I had gotten like down here. And I was just like, you know what? I will do sock surgery. I will add the missing rows and I'll graft it back together. And one thing led to another and it didn't work out. So I just cast on a new pair in the red, white, and blue that I was kind of drawn to because the Olympics were on, and I knit these entire socks while watching Olympic hockey, which was a lot of fun. So again, these are the newspaper socks by CowFromMars. I knit the size 72 stitches, and these were the qualifier socks for Sock Madness. So let's talk about Sock Madness. If you are not familiar with Sock Madness, it is a knitting competition hosted on the knitting pattern website, knitting and crochet pattern, or just pattern website called Ravelry. Essentially, what happens is you were given a pattern and specifications to knit that pattern to. If you are able to knit the pattern to specifications within that 2-week time period, you qualify for a spot on a team. And the way that Sock Madness does it, or at least the way that they have done it the entirety of the time that I've been involved, which is like 5 or 6 years, is they put you on a team ranked A to Z. And so I believe it's the same every year. The slower teams are at the beginning of the alphabet and the faster teams are at the end of the alphabet. And the way that they sort you is based on how you answer a questionnaire when you decide you want to participate. So before the competition ever begins, they open up this Google form that asks you about your knitting speed and what you have going on. So for example, I work full-time, but I don't have kids. So I probably have more knitting time than someone that works full-time and has kids. And they place you on a team with like similar knitting speeds, and they ask you like how fast can you knit a pair of socks and stuff like that. And you can always knit faster than you think you can when you're in a competition setting, in my opinion. Anyway, you get sorted onto your team, and then you compete for 7 rounds or 6 rounds within your team against each other. So I think there was like 50 people in my team this year. In the first round, we went down to 42 people. In the second round, we go down to 32, third, 22, 12, and then I think it's 7, and then 1. Once we get to that one person from each team, all of the teams will compete, and then you will cheer on your fellow teammates, whoever gets that last spot. And then they will compete in the final round with which team gets it. Obviously, most of the time, the faster teams get it. I am on a relatively fast team. I'm on Team O this year. But anyway, it's just a lot of fun. And these were the qualifying socks to be able to participate. So I did qualify with my newspaper socks. And then the next thing I finished was my hand-spun Jaunty Shawl. I don't think I ever showed, I can't remember, to be perfectly honest, if I showed you guys the finished yarn or if it was still still on the bobbin, but this is what the Jaunty Shawl looks like. And hopefully I'll be able to add B-roll for all of these. But this is the Jaunty Shawl by Andrea Mowry. I ended up with a fingering weight yarn with my hand spun. So I striped 2 braids of BFL together. I did a chain ply, and I love the way this turned out. I knit the Jaunty on a 3.0 millimeter needle. I found that my spinning was pretty consistent and I had no issues with that. I knit I think it was about 960 yards, 223 grams. And I knit pretty much all of it. I knit to, I think there was a remaining 2 grams left. And I'm super stoked. This is my very, very first shawl. And I would knit another one, I think. Maybe. We'll see how well I wear this. Unfortunately, we're kind of out of winter now. So I don't think I will really have a chance to wear that because it is BFL. So it's quite not prickly at all. It's not prickly, but it's like it's toothy. So if you're warm or sweating, it's going to, at least it affects me a little bit more than it affects me when it's cold. All right, so once I was done with the Jaunty, we jumped right into round 1 of Sock Madness. And these are okay, so as soon as I was finished my Jaunty, the round 1 socks of Sock Madness dropped. So that's what these are. And these are the Quasar Socks. I think these are by Perry Dragon. But again, all of that will be linked below. And I use completely scraps for these. The black is a Cascade Heritage in just the black colorway. And then I tried to do like a fire gradient. It's just scraps from what I had laying around. So let's see if I can get this right. This red down here is knitted wit. I think it's Flaming Locks of Auburn Hair. This one is a Boss Kitty Cat's Cradle Balrog. Then we move into a Magpie Fiber. I think this is the Evil Beaver. Then Call Me Ale by Spun Right Round. Not Tough Love Sock, that's Sweet Georgia. This is the classic sock. And then the yellow, I also think is knitted wit. Bittersweet Memories, I believe, but not 100% on that. And then this white is Sweet Georgia Tough Love Sock in the color Birch, which is one of my all-time favorite colors. And yeah, I love these. I think when I counted, it was nearly 950 beads that I had to place on by hand. I learned how to bead using a super floss threader, and that was a game changer for me because if I had to do this with my crochet hook, I probably would have just crashed out. And then my final finished object is another pair of socks. So these are my Pretty Privileged socks. They're round 2 Sock Madness socks, and I just finished them yesterday. So I am approved. I will be moving on to round 3. And yeah, I'm very, very pleased with the way these turned out. So all information will be linked below. I know I didn't necessarily get the designers' names correctly. I know them by their like usernames on Ravelry versus like their actual designer names. So all relevant information will be linked in the description. Also, I knit all of my socks all the time on 2.25 millimeter needles. I always magic loop unless for some weird reason I can't, but I've never come across well, that's not true. If I can knit it in the round, I will magic loop it with 2.25 millimeter needles. And the yarn for this sock that I used is Sweet Georgia Tough Love sock in the color Snowfall. I believe I used about 59 grams for these socks. So it's just a great pattern, like all together. I'm not a big lace person, to be perfectly honest. I'm not the biggest fan of lace, but I just think that it looks really nicely. And the reason why I have these 2 on blockers currently is because I haven't blocked them like with water yet. So I think showing the pattern is a little bit easier when I have them on blockers versus these are blocked, though not well. So I could show the pattern a little bit better. Moving on to those are all my finished objects. So now we can move into whips. The only real thing that you guys have seen before is my coming soon sweater. So this is what she's looking like. I'll get a close up. And I haven't worked on this much because I've just been working on socks, but the last time you guys saw it, it was where this marker is. So what is that? About 2 inches? Almost 2 inches of growth. I think what I'm going to do is actually continue on the body because normally I would start the sleeves, but I just caked up a new cake of yarn, and I do think that I would prefer just to work mindlessly in the round until I get to about where I think I want to stop, and then I will start the sleeves and come back and finish it off. This is the Coming Soon sweater by Susanne Müller. I am knitting this out of the Patagonia Organic Merino in the color Indigo. And I did already do the collar, so we're good to go on that. It is folded down and whip stitched to the cast on edge. I think I did a relatively good job on that. I hope that this is coming up. I know it's super dark in here, but there's just nothing I can do. I'm using every light I have available. I do have one new cast on, but I'm going to show you the failed version of that cast on first, and then we'll go into how I restarted. If you've been here for a while, you know that I am a big fan of Meeshyfrazz, who is Meeshyfrazz Knits. And what Michelle is doing is she's hosting a knit along for her Anacortes line of patterns. She has socks, I think there's a shawl, there's a pullover, and a short sleeve version of that pullover. So a long sleeve and a short sleeve version. And I really liked that pattern, but I wasn't able to test knit it when it first came out. I just didn't have the bandwidth. And because I was planning on making the short sleeve pullover, I wanted to do it out of a cotton yarn. So I placed an order with Knit Picks when they were having a sale, and I picked up this Knit Picks woolen cotton. And this is in the color Peacoat Heather. Ooh, okay. It's in the color Peacoat Heather, and I cast on the Anacortes Pullover in the size 4 because I knew my gauge was going to be a little bit off with the cotton, and it wasn't going to, I don't know, it wasn't going to hold the same way it would with wool. And I got into knitting this and just realized that one, it was killing my hands, completely killing my hands. And two, you really couldn't see the stitch pattern. Like, even generally, I don't mind knitting with black or really dark yarn because in person you can see the stitches, even if you can't see it on the screen. And I'm wearing this stuff in real life, not just for like a screen. So I didn't really mind if it doesn't show up on a screen, but it shows up in real life. This is not showing up, this pattern is not showing up in real life. And it was killing my hands. So I just ripped my needles clean out and said, well, we'll find a new yarn for this. And that's where this comes in. So you have seen, if you've been here, this yarn many times before. I've hemmed and hawed on what to use it for. This yarn is one of my favorite all-time yarns. This is Alta Truth by Alta Yarns, and it is discontinued. But if we look at it next to my face, we can tell, like, okay, this is not my color. But when this yarn was discontinued, my local yarn shop had it on a 70 or 80% discount. So I got this for next to nothing. And it has sat in my stash all of these years, like 3 or 4, waiting for the right project. And it just so happened that this was the perfect gauge for the Anacortes Pullover. So let's see, what is the front? This is the front. There's a ton of shaping in this pattern. So this is the front. And I am doing my raglan increases currently. If this looks weird, it's because my needle slept, or it's because my needle just broke clean off. I've had these needles for probably 8 or 9 years. They were the very, very first fixed circular knitting needle I ever bought, my 3.75. So it lasted a long time. I'm not too worried about it. I need to put this on an interchangeable cord anyway, so I'm not super upset about it. But I figured this was a good time to stop and show you. So here she is, the start of my Anacortes Pullover. I am using 3.75 millimeter needles. What I love about Meeshyfrazz patterns is that most of the finishing is done, and so you don't have to go back at the end of a pattern and like pick up a neckline or do something weird. So in this case, you cast on for the neckline, you do your ribbing then, and then you just go straight into your increases and working your short rows. It's really convenient. It's really nice. I know that there's a reason why we do it in some patterns and not others. I don't think that this pattern is going to lack structural integrity because it doesn't have a lot of ease. So I don't think it's going to stretch out too much. This is a 100% wool. I don't think it's superwash. I truly can't remember, but I don't think it's superwash. I have worked with it in the past. I have another sweater out of this, and I love it. So the plan for this is once I finish it, I'm going to take whatever leftover yarn there is, knit up tiny swatches, and I'm going to dye it, over dye it, in a couple different Dharma dyes that I have and see which one I like better. And then I will over dye the entire sweater. I'm thinking not too dark. I do have a black, so I probably won't do the black, but I do have a really nice red and a really nice green. The red is similar to my Fidalgo cardigan. It's like a purpley red, a mulberry color. And then I have like a really, not moss green, but like deeper than that, like a deep sage, not sage. I don't know what to call it, like a really nice Ireland grass color, like a deep green. So that is the only other thing that I'm working on currently. I am kind of beholden to Sock Madness right now. So when a pattern drops, I drop everything and I knit the pattern, and then I'll resume whatever I'm working on. But I haven't really been inspired to work on anything that I have recently, and that's probably because I've been playing like a copious amount, like an unhealthy amount of Pokopia. It's just so fun. I actually already beat the game, which tells you everything you need to know because that game has not been out for that long. And now I'm just like perfecting my towns and making my Pokemon really happy. So that's what I'm doing right now. I don't have any future plans. I did, for acquisitions, pick up 5 of these. And then I also, while I was placing an order for knit picks, I picked up this Barocco Renew. I picked up 9 balls of this because it was on clearance. And actually, what happened was crazy. So I bought 9 balls of these, but I only received 8. So I gave customer service a call, and because it was on clearance, they had completely sold out of the yarn. So I was like, okay, no problem, thinking that they were just going to refund me the $5 for this one ball because it was on super sale. And they actually refunded me for my entire order of this, all 9 balls, which I thought was like the most incredible customer service. That was just above and beyond. I would have been happy with just getting, refunded for this or given like a $15 store credit. So really, really cool of them to do that for me. And if you haven't shopped Knit Picks, I would say shop with confidence because they will take care of you if something goes wrong. So we got all of that out of the way. I do really want to talk about my knitting bingo board. So maybe we will do that. Where's my... And I will put it up on the screen so you guys can follow along, but I'm going to take a look at my knitting journal for right now. Where is this? Okay. So we talked about my Fidalgo pullover earlier in the year. That marks off complete a test knit. Then I have Sock Madness, and that was a Sock Madness participation. The way I said that was going to be a win or a bingo mark off was if I passed the qualifier, which I did. So that is the newspaper socks. Then I have a garter stitch pattern, which is my Midland cardigan. And then I haven't decided if I'm going to put the Jaunty Shawl and half Fisherman's Rib or work with BFO. I think I'm going to do half Fisherman's Rib. And then, of course, I have my cast on. And then I have knit socks. And that can be either one of my 2 socks that I have here. I still have quite a few things on my bingo board, but on my Make 9, I did finish the Midland cardigan and the Jaunty Shawl, and I'm getting closer on my Coming Soon sweater. So should have some good progress. I might not fill out my bingo board, and that's okay. And I may not complete my Make 9, and that's also okay. I tend to slow down this time of year. I give a lot of emphasis or a lot of my time into Sock Madness, into gardening, and into reading. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, and it feels good. I don't feel overwhelmed. I don't feel like I have to produce something just because I feel like I should. I'm just going to do whatever I want, and I will always make my way back to knitting because it really is a true joy and a love of mine. But that's all I have to say today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Thank you so much for sticking with me. I know that this is super overdue. And what I will do within the next week or so is I will film another video and we will go over my quarter 1 stats. I know I had high hopes for quarter one, but because I went all in for sock madness, I didn't get a lot of that done, but I still got some good progress. Just within the last, month and a week or so, I have five finished objects. That's pretty darn good. So if that interests you, please catch that video. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and let me know what you are working on in the comments below. Thank you.